Hello, hi, welcome back. A quick one, which is very important. We just went through the definition of each level of Bloom's taxonomy, which gives us the interpretation of each level. And as you can see, as we graduate from level 1 to level 6, there is a kind of hierarchical or kind of a graduation in terms of knowledge and skill. Now, we want to move from this section to really connecting different types of verbs that aligns with each and every level so that you know which how to apply some of these verbs in terms of your development of learning outcomes. Okay? Now, a synopsis of the levels. If you see from low level 1 or from the lower level, which is now the remembering level. Now, remembering level is connected to certain verbs. All right? Now, these verbs are connected to this level, especially when it comes to learning. Now, you can see your define, your duplicate, list, memorize, repeat, state. These are lower level verbs that can be used in terms of developing learning outcomes at this stage. This may later be connected with different training methods and resources or other assessment strategies that would help in developing questions. Now, as you graduate up, you have now your understanding, like we saw. These are concepts that are connected to understanding. When you classify, you relate to understanding. Describe, discuss, explain, identify, and maybe many more. So you can see how we gain stairs as we progress upward. Application, on the other hand, is where you apply some of the concepts like we saw earlier in our definition from remembering and explanation in terms of solving, use, demonstration of an experiment, and other concepts. These are key application aspects. Now, as we proceed, you see now the breakdown of key concepts, characteristics, and relationship of different parts, which comes with the differentiating of those components, organizing, relating, compare and construct, contrast, distinguish, so you can really relate with what we saw earlier. Evaluate, we talked about, it's more like making judgment, or when you look at your positive and your negatives, and then you tend to either appraise, argue, defend, judge, select probably the best decision, support, and probably minimal. On the other hand, we have now the create, being the highest level of learning, where designing, assemble, and others may present themselves as concept of producing new or original work. Just like we said earlier, learning graduate from lower order of learning to the highest order of learning. So with this concept, you can now position yourself when it comes to developing learning outcomes. Which area of learning outcome would you pick your verbs from? Okay, now this was just a synopsis of what could be happening going forward. Now, the next thing, we have a larger library. This library presents with you more and more verbs that are connected to Bloom's taxonomy, and you are actually spoiled of choice to choose. Sometimes we see some learning outcomes just repeating the same action verbs, where you have different concepts that you can apply that can help you in extracting the learning outcome that are connected to your training methods and resources, as well as your assessment concept. So go through this concept to give you a guideline, especially when writing your learning outcome. You know the right verb for you to use, especially when extracting your statement, which builds up your learning outcome. Okay, so this is key for you to utilize and as being seen to apply, especially when building up those assessment, building those training methods and resources. All right, good. Now, this is another important part. When writing your learning outcome, it's important to observe, very important to observe key rules. And in particular, when writing learning outcome, focus mainly on the output or outcome, which is mainly the results, not the process. Because the bottom line is, if you can achieve the results, the process may not matter much, because we get there in different methods and resources. The key is, can you achieve the results? On the other statement, when writing your learning outcomes, ensure that you start each learning outcome with an action verb every time. And that's when we saw earlier, by the end of the training, participant should be able to, then you bring in the verb, and then you can now construct that particular learning outcome based on the statement that you have. Don't forget, number 3, to use only one action verb for each learning outcome. This is more specific, more relevant, without any confusion. We have had cases where you see learning outcome written, list and explain under one statement. This is what is being discouraged, to bring about clarity in terms of your learning outcome. Of course, let your learning outcome cover the whole topic or key aspect. For me, I feel this is more like looking at Bloom's taxonomy from lower to higher, where you engage your remembering, your understanding, your application, of course, your analysis, your evaluation, and of course, to the end of entire, maybe what we say, creativity. Touch on different levels. Let your learning outcome not only focus on one section, so that you can graduate the skill of learning. Now, write the learning outcomes in terms of what the learner does. Remember, it's the learners, and the results should be extracted from the learners, but not what the instructor does. Mainly focus on what the learner is able to do. Now, let cover, of course, fit in within the program, more like number 4. Of course, focus on different domains where you have either knowledge, you can have probably behavior or understanding, and of course skill. Let all meet the SMART concept, and of course avoid vague verbs, especially know, be aware, understanding. Learners should understand, learners should be able to know. These are concepts that are discouraged, especially some of them are vague and probably generic. Some may not be as clear as the verbs that are actually expected. Okay, so by observing all these concepts here, you may now meet the standards of writing the learning outcomes appropriately, which is actually required in terms of helping in cascading the learning and assessment from the different types of learning skills that we may need. With that, I hope you can appropriately write a good learning outcome or good learning outcomes. Shortly, we'll see an sample of how to write a simple learning outcome using a simple case study or sample. All right, great. I'll see you shortly. All right.